In the early 1900s, a time of rapid scientific progress and fierce colonial powers vying for control over distant lands, one man, Albert Schweitzer, stood out. He was a brilliant philosopher, theologian, and accomplished musician, a man who could have easily pursued fame and success in Europe. But instead, he made a choice that shocked his peers. Schweitzer left behind a comfortable life to establish a medical mission in Lambaréné, deep in what is now Gabon, Africa. His mission was driven by an unshakable moral conviction, a desire to serve and alleviate the suffering of others. Yet, the path he chose was anything but simple. Despite his good intentions, Schweitzer's work in Lambaréné drew sharp criticism. Locals and intellectuals alike questioned his methods and his role as an outsider in Africa. While he sought to bring healing, many saw his work as a reflection of paternalism, a savior complex that overshadowed the very people he wished to uplift. As he poured himself into his mission, Schweitzer grappled with an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes, doing good doesn't guarantee a good outcome. His work sparked a debate that continues to this day. Can a person truly do good without unintended consequences? Schweitzer's life became a profound example of a paradox that many still face. He wanted to ease suffering, but he encountered opposition and misunderstandings that left him questioning the very essence of goodness. In this quest, he discovered that sometimes the road to doing good is paved with sacrifice, criticism, and personal cost, a realization that would shape the rest of his journey. Albert Schweitzer's journey teaches us that the act of doing good isn't always as pure or straightforward as it seems. Often, the line between helping and hindering, between lifting others up and imposing our will, is far thinner than we imagine. This is the paradox of goodness. While intentions may be pure, the outcomes can be unpredictable and, at times, painful. Schweitzer's choice to dedicate his life to serving others came from a place of deep compassion. Yet his actions stirred questions about the true impact of altruism. This very paradox has led philosophers and psychologists to question whether there's an inherent risk in devoting oneself entirely to the good of others. As Friedrich Nietzsche put it, he who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. In striving to protect others from suffering, we may risk losing sight of our own boundaries, our own needs, and even our own values. Goodness, when pursued without reflection, can turn into a burden, an obligation, or even a mask for our deeper, often unconscious motivations. But why is this? Psychologists have found that our desire to be good is, at its core, complex and layered. It's influenced not only by a wish to help others, but often by an underlying need for acceptance, recognition, and even control. When we try to become perfect givers, we may find ourselves lost in the expectations of others, forgetting to take care of our own well-being. So, how do we balance this? How do we give without losing ourselves in the process? As we dive deeper, let's remember Schweitzer's journey, a life filled with acts of service, but also with criticism, internal struggle, and the question of whether he was truly doing the right thing. Because sometimes the noblest path isn't about sacrificing everything for others. It's about finding a balance between compassion for others and compassion for ourselves. For Albert Schweitzer, the cost of being a good person was immense. He spent his life giving to others, often at the expense of his own comfort, reputation, and even his sense of belonging. But while Schweitzer's story is unique, the costs he faced are universal. When we focus solely on being good for others, we may start to overlook the toll it takes on us. In psychology, there's a phenomenon known as compassion fatigue. It's the idea that caring for others constantly can leave us emotionally, mentally, and even physically drained. Those who push themselves to always be the good one often face this fatigue, feeling like their own needs are secondary. We might hear echoes of this in Schweitzer's life, a man who, despite his noble mission, found himself isolated, misunderstood, and exhausted. As philosopher Aristotle once said, "Virtue lies in our power, and similarly so too does vice." The pursuit of goodness is noble, but if left unchecked, it can become a vice, pulling us into cycles of guilt, self-sacrifice, and even resentment. We might find ourselves saying yes when we want to say no, giving more than we have to give, or feeling obligated to meet others' expectations to the point of forgetting who we are. So, where do we draw the line? The cost of being good shouldn't mean sacrificing our own sense of self. It's not selfish to acknowledge our limits. Rather, it's essential. Schweitzer himself faced this struggle and ultimately realized that true goodness must include self-respect and the courage to step back when necessary. As we reflect on Schweitzer's journey, let's consider our own lives. Are we giving too much? Are we sacrificing our own peace in an attempt to be good for others? These questions aren't easy, but they are necessary, because true goodness doesn't demand that we abandon ourselves. It requires that we care for ourselves as deeply as we care for those around us. Albert Schweitzer's life story highlights a crucial lesson, that true goodness begins within. For all his efforts to heal and uplift others, Schweitzer had to confront his own struggles, his own limitations, and ultimately, his own humanity. The paradox of being a good person isn't about constantly sacrificing for others. It's about cultivating compassion for oneself along the way. We often think of goodness as selflessness, yet psychologists argue that genuine kindness must start from a place of self-awareness and self-respect. If we neglect our own needs, we risk depleting ourselves. And when that happens, we have nothing left to give. Renowned psychoanalyst Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Jung's words remind us that understanding and honoring ourselves is not selfish, it's foundational. Schweitzer learned, albeit painfully, that turning goodness inward was essential to maintaining his strength. He realized that his ability to help others was only as strong as his ability to care for himself. This realization isn't just a matter of philosophy. It's a practical truth. Setting boundaries, taking time for rest, and pursuing personal joy aren't luxuries. They are acts of self-respect that make genuine giving possible. In our own lives, this balance may look like taking the moment to ask, am I giving because I truly want to, or because I feel I have to? It might mean learning to say no without guilt or setting limits without shame. By turning our kindness inward, we lay a foundation that allows us to give to others without losing ourselves in the process. As we reflect on Schweitzer's life, let it be a reminder that self-compassion and goodness are not opposites. In fact, they are inseparable. The journey toward balanced goodness isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness. It's about being good to ourselves first, so we can be authentically present for others. As we look back on Albert Schweitzer's life, we see a man who embodied the paradox of goodness, someone who dedicated himself to others, but eventually learned that true goodness also demands self-respect and balance. His journey reminds us that the pursuit of being a good person is not about perfection or self-sacrifice to the point of exhaustion. Rather, it's about finding a harmony between compassion for others and compassion for ourselves. In navigating this balance, consider these questions as personal guides. What are my motives? Are you giving from a place of genuine desire, or out of obligation and fear of disappointing others? Recognizing your motives can help you set boundaries that feel true to who you are. Am I taking care of myself? True goodness is sustainable only when you nurture yourself. Take time for rest, embrace joy, and don't feel guilty for putting yourself first sometimes. As poet Audre Lorde once said, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. How can I be kind to myself? Practice self-compassion. Forgive your own mistakes, respect your own needs, and remember that you are deserving of the same kindness you give to others. In the end, this is the paradox of being a good person. True goodness isn't about abandoning yourself for others. It's about honoring yourself so you can be a genuine force of kindness in the world. Schweitzer's life and legacy remind us that we don't have to choose between helping others and helping ourselves. We can do both, If we stay true to our values, respect our limits, and approach life with authenticity and courage. Let these reflections serve as your guide. Be good, but be whole. Embrace compassion, but not at the expense of your own peace. And remember, the path to true goodness starts within. As you go about your day, ask yourself, what does being good mean to me? How can I balance kindness to others with kindness to myself? Share your thoughts or a personal experience in the comments below. Your insights might just help someone else find their own balance. And if this message resonates with you, consider subscribing for more content that dives into the hidden truths of life. Remember, true goodness isn't about perfection. It's about being whole. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to like the video. It lets us know we're on the right track. And don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking content that explores the deeper questions of life. Share your own experiences with this paradox in the comments. Your story could inspire someone else on their journey to balanced goodness. Remember, being a good person isn't about perfection. It's about embracing your whole self.